Exception handling. All right. Tell me, what is an exception? What is the exception?
Like kind of error.
Right. What happens when you get an error?
Execution will stop.
Right. Your execution will stop. Ante, all right. So your execution will stop. Your program will no more run. So it stops abruptly. Even if you have written 100 lines of code, and if there is an error in the very fifth line of the code, right? Fifth line, right? And if it hits an error at the fifth line, your program stops right then and there. It will not proceed further to the 100th line. No. Fifth line, there was an error. Your program stops there. Okay. So what is an exception, right? An exception is an event. An exception is an event, right? When does it occur? Which occurs during execution of program, right? It occurs when you're executing a program, right? An exception is an event which occurs during the execution of a program that stops the flow, or that stops the flow program and terminates the execution. Terminates the execution. Okay. So an exception is an event which occurs during the execution of a program that stops the flow of a program and terminates the execution Right? What are the different exceptions or errors that we have seen so far?
Key error, value error.
Key error,
Value.
value error,
Type
Name
error.
error.
index error, right?
Syntax error.
Type error.
Right. We have seen all of these errors so far. So whenever we have seen any of these error, your program basically got terminated. Program terminated abruptly. Abruptly, what do you mean by abrupt?
Get ended, sir.
Right. So suddenly it just stopped execution without completing it. Without completing the complete execution, it just stopped because it got some error and it just abruptly stopped there. It did not proceed further. Right. So if there is now we all know that if at all if there is an error or an exception, so here we call it as an exception. Okay, so whenever a program stops abruptly because of any error, we call that as an exception. Right. Now if at all an exception stops the execution of a program, if at all an exception stops the execution of a program, how can we run servers? Right. For example, you must be using Instagram, yes or no?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
Now we know that Instagram is always 24/7 it is available. You open midnight at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, morning 7, 8, 10, at any point in time if you open, Instagram just works.
Yes, sir.
Is
Yes, sir.
Yes.
right? They're not saying like, access from morning 9 to 10 and only 9 to 4 o'clock only then it will work and after that it will not work. No, it is saying like, access any point in time. That is the whole point of a web application or the programming, right? It can run at any point in time. Yeah. Now, let us say there was some error in the Instagram code and it just the program stopped. So if the program or the execution of that program stops, right, it basically stopped and we will not be able to access it. We will not be able to access it. Right. So it is possible. Whoever writes code, it is always possible that it program, whenever we write a code, we always expect there will be errors. There will be errors. Expected errors, unexpected errors. There will be any instance that there will be for sure at some point in time it will hit a error state. Okay. Now, whenever it hits a error, we know that program stops. Right. If the program stops, your application stops. Right. So for example, if there is an error in Instagram, basically Instagram stops. If at all, if Instagram stops, will you be able to access? No. You cannot access Instagram or a Facebook or Google or whatever, right? Any application, any software application, Ola, Uber, Flipkart, Amazon, whatever the application that you take, everything has been programmed, right? Either Java or Python or Ruby. There are several other programming languages that help us access these websites and order something, send a message to someone, post a video, whatever. Right, all these platforms are basically programmed through any of the programming language. Now, if at all if there is a error and the program execution of the program stopped, meaning like you will not be able to access in any of these services. Right. So we should be able to recover from errors. That way, our program doesn't stop. That way, our program doesn't stop. So the primary objective of writing a program is that yes, program can throw errors at any point in time. We might get exceptions, but if an exception occurs, I should handle that exception. That way my execution doesn't stop. That way my program doesn't get terminated. Right? That way my program should not get terminated. Are we clear? We should be able to handle the exception. Right? As we say, exception can come at any point in time. But when an exception comes, we should ensure that our program doesn't abruptly stop. We should ensure that we handle the exception. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, so,
Yes, sir.
so
Yes.
be aware that nobody can write a error-free program. Nobody can write a error-free program. You see, if we are writing a program, we should be clear that we will hit errors for sure. Okay. But if at all, if there is an error, we should handle that. We should handle that. Right? And ensure that users will not be impacted. Who are the users? If you're writing a Redbus application, okay, let us say you get a job in Redbus, example. Now Redbus is an or Abibus, whatever you want to take. Now these are software companies which has built a solution around the ticket booking for the transport. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now if your program stops for whatever reason, okay, now nobody will be able to book a ticket. Nobody will be able to access the application. Nobody will be able to if I have booked already, right? I'm not able to download my ticket, right? Your payments are happening and your amount was deducted, but you are not getting the ticket. You see the impact what will be the number of users that would be using Abibus at a given point in time? There will be thousands of people who would be using that application, trying to book ticket from different locations. Which means that that application should be available 24/7. 24/7 that application should be available. Which means if you are a programmer in Abibus or wherever, you should ensure that exception errors might occur, but you should handle that way users are not impacted. That way users are not impacted. If a particular service is not working, you tell, okay, I handled this exception. Okay, there is something went wrong. We will look into it. You should be able to handle and update user that, okay, the only this piece of that only that instance it is not working, but rest of the application just works fine. Okay, that is how you should handle. So errors will break your application. So you should ensure that you will handle errors. Okay, are we clear?
Clear, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Clear,
sir.
sir.
Right? Don't think like, I will write a program which will not throw error. No, boss, you cannot write it. There will be errors. You should be smart enough to know how do I handle. If at all, if there is an error, how do I handle it? Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Right. Now, every programming language will throw an error, and every programming language would have given us an option to handle the error also. Would have given us option to handle the errors. Okay. Now in Python, right? If at all if there is a error, Python also gives an option to handle that error. Right. So whatever the error. So for example, what happens if I just say a equal to 10/0?
Error.
Anything divided by 0 is what?
Infinity.
Right.
Infinity.
In programming, there is nothing called infinity. Okay. So when it comes to infinity, there are certain programming languages which does support, but Python doesn't support the infinity funda. Okay. So which means when I say 10/0, whenever it hits this case, it will say 0 division error. Okay. Since this is also an error, if at all, if you have given some sort of calculator application to a user and he says 10/0, your programming is done, your program just stops. Okay. Now let us write that application. Okay. What I'm trying to say here is, let us go to, right. Well, let us write a small calculator function. Okay. I'm going to write this. You have to follow it. I'm just writing a while true. Okay. Enter operation. Whatever it is, I'm going to enter the operation here. Operation time can be add, division, or quit. There are three operations. If operation dot do is equal to quit, which means break. Stopping application. Stopping application, right? If now let me just write lf lf operation dot. Let me just do one thing. I'll just move it here so that I don't write it on each this thing. Division and say input of number print a by b. Will this work? Will this work? Come on, boys, tell me, will this work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let us see. Now I'm just going to calc function. I'm just going to call this function and let us see if it works. I'm going to call this and execute it. All right. So if I type quit, let us see, it works. Yeah, stopping application and your program stops. Okay, let me just say add. Enter number 3. Enter number 3. Is 3 plus 3 33? Now what is wrong here?
We have to convert that into int type.
Integer. Right. Now first thing is, let us convert that to integer. Right. Now I'm going to stop it. I'm going to rerun this program. Okay. Add 3, 3, 6. We are good. And again, it is not stopping. It is asking for you to enter operation again. Now let us say like, enter now division, right? This time enter 2 or maybe enter 5, enter 2, right? There is an error because it is a string and string. I'm using a division operator. It is possible that you get an error, right? It is possible that you get an error. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, right? So this has to be handled. This has to be handled. Yes.
Yes, sir.
It throwed an error and you see exit code with 1. So maybe basically your program stopped abruptly. It is not continuing further. Yeah. So now we have to handle this exception, right? We have to handle this exception. How are we going to handle? Right. Now we know let here in this case, I'm just going to take 10 by 0 and be sure that 10 by 0 is going to throw an error, which is zero division error. If I have to quickly show that to you, let me use this. Right. So 10 by 0 is basically zero division error. Yeah, it throws an error for sure. Okay, now let us try to see like, how to handle it. So any code that you think this will possibly throw an error, any code that you think this will possibly throw an error, which means we have to handle that also. Now there is a format or there is a syntax on how to handle. So there is something called try. Okay. Except try, except try colon, right? You take 4 spaces, in Python, every block needs to take 4 spaces. What is this called?
Indentation.
Indentations.
Indentation.
Indentation, right? All right. Now this is your code where you try error thrown code. Meaning any code that you think like, it might possibly throw an error, you write it in the try block. Whatever you want to try, put it in the try block, right? And if at all, if there is a except means exception. Except means exception. If at all, if there is an exception, right? This piece of code will be executed. It handles the exception and this block will be executed. Executes when there is an exception. Right? So any error, if at all, if it sees an error, instead of stopping the exception, instead of stopping the flow of the execution, it immediately goes to except block. It immediately goes to except block. Meaning your except block will be executed whenever there is an exception. Your except block will get executed whenever there is a exception. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Here in the
Yes, sir.
try, what do we write? Error occurring code. Any code that can throw an error will be in the try block. Okay. If at all, if there is a error, if at all, if there is an exception, that should be that then the except block will be executed. Here you have to handle the error. Here you are handle the error. Except block will be executed whenever there is a error. Whenever there is a error. Are we clear?
Yes,
Clear,
sir.
sir.
Clear,
So
sir.
if at all, if I have to write now 10 by 0, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say try colon and here x is equal to 10 by 0. For sure, this will throw an error except block. And I'm going to say print handled error. Nothing. So instead of stopping the program abruptly, now after this, it will still proceed further. After this, it will still proceed further, which means your program is handled. The error is handled. For example, in this code, let us say I have print statement 1, right? This is the first line of the code. And here I have x is equal to 10 by 0. And here within right after that, I have another statement. Statement 2. Okay. Then after that, I have print statement 3. Okay. Now tell me if this is my program, if I execute this, what will be the output? What will be the output for this if I execute this? So this now your Python program starts executing line by line, which means it is an interpreted programming language, right? So it has to execute line by line. First, this line gets executed, right? Is there any error in this line?
No, sir.
No, right? This will print what? It will say statement 1. Perfect. Then it will go to the next line. What does this do? This throws an error, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Once it sees an error, that's it. It exits. Program terminates right here. It will not proceed further. There are these two lines, but they won't be executed. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So which means only one statement it got executed successfully, but other statements gone because of the error. Yeah. Now what we are going to do is let us go handle the exception. So try except right. I'm sure this will throw an exception. So what we are going to do, okay. See, if you notice here, right, this code is in the try block and this one print statement is in the except block. This is also outside. This is also outside. Okay. Now, what will be the output? What will be the output? Which is the first statement in this? This one?
Statement 1.
Statement 1.
Statement 1.
Statement 1. Okay, now try within that. We have this code which will throw error.
Error.
Okay, now the moment it hits an error, right, it will not proceed further with the code that is there in the try block. It will not proceed further with the code that is there in the try block, but rather the moment it sees an error, it will directly go to except block. It will directly go to except block because this is the handling. This is where the error should be handled. Right, your program doesn't stop, but it will go to the except block. Right, what does except block say?
Statement 3.
Statement 3.
Statement.
Statement 3 done. Nothing much we are doing. We are just printing in the handling portion and proceeding further, and that's it. The try, it saw an error here and it will not proceed further within the try block, but it will jump to the except block. In the except block, we are just printing the statement 3, and again your try except is done. Your program will continue further. So this, then after that, this gets executed. What do we say?
Statement.
Statement 4. Now, what is the one statement that we are missing is because of the error? This one. Yes, this won't be executed because, right, the code right above it has thrown an error, has resulted in error. Because it got resulted in error, any code further within the try block will not be executed, but rather goes to the except block. One good thing is that your program execution did not abruptly stop. Your program execution did not abruptly stop. It stopped only after completing the execution of all the statements. It stopped only after completing the execution of all the statements. Clear?
Clear, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
It did not just abruptly stop. Okay, so this is the importance of the exception handling. What is the importance? Hey, why should I handle exceptions? Let's say the interviewer asks you, hey, why should I handle the exceptions? Why can't I just leave it as is? What is the problem? What will you answer? You have to answer like, if I don't handle the exception, then my program abruptly stops and will not run. And hence I need to handle the exceptions. That way I can complete the execution of the program and ensure it completes successfully. Yes,
Yes, sir.
right. See, when somebody asks a question, you need not um, just remember everything and same with the same statements. No, you have to understand it and you just deliver that in your own words. Deliver that in your own words. Yeah.
Yes, okay, sir.
See,
Yes, sir.
the one who is asking you a question should basically know that, okay, you know what you know the concept and you are able to explain it well. Need not be in a great English. You don't need a foreign accent or like, some other thing. But even with the basic English, are you able to deliver what you know properly? Okay,
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
right.
Okay, sir.
Now,
Okay, sir.
right. So if at all any code that you think that this will throw an error should be in which block?
Try block, sir.
Try
That
block.
should be in the try block.
Try,
And
try,
how do I
Try block.
handle this error? The moment you say except, it will handle. Okay, right? But if at all if there is an error, what am I supposed to do? That should be the error handling code should be in the except block. The error handling code should
Except
be in
block.
the except block.
Except block.
Okay, so if you have a try and except, then your program will not stop for any errors, right? And you can successfully complete the execution of your program. Okay, are we clear? Now let us go
Yes,
back
sir.
to our program and see what we can do here to avoid this error. To avoid this error. Okay, so now what we can do here is, right? What we can do here is, right? I'm going to say try, right? A is equal to int of A, B is equal to int of B. Now I'm trying to convert it, right? Except if at all if there is a error, print enter valid numbers, digits only, digits only. Okay, now let us execute this program again, right? I'm going to say division, right? Enter number 10 and enter number 20, right? 10 by 20, it says 0.5. Cool, no problem there. Yeah, and again I'm going to say division, enter 20 divided by 10, right? 2, no problem. It is able to successfully execute, and again asking for another output, add 10 ABC. We hit an error. We hit an error. It stopped. Now I'm going to handle, I should handle here also, right? It is possible people will enter some other random value. I'm going to say try, except, right? Enter valid numbers, digits only. Now let me just try again. Add 10 ABC. All right, local B referenced before this thing, so except after handling. So let me just take this guy also in. Right, so wait a second. Let me take this guy inside. Let me re-execute it. What does it say? Enter valid number, digits only. And it did not crash your program now. It did not stop your program. Rather, it is asking for another set of, okay, then I'll just say add again. Okay, this time I'll say 10, 0, valid numbers. Executed. Now division also, right? 10, ABC. It says enter valid number, digits only, fine. I'll say 10, right? 10 works. Okay, so this is something else. Oh God. I just have to stop this and let me restart and it's not scrolling. Okay. Division 10, 10. Valid numbers, not a problem. Executed properly. 10 and I say 0. Ah, God, sorry, my bad. Okay, so division, enter number 10 and 0. Right, now what is it saying? Enter valid numbers, digits only. Are these not digits? Are these not digits? They are digits, right? 10 is also a digit, 0 is also a digit. But what is it saying? Enter valid numbers, digits only. Now, if you see here in this piece of code, what are the possible errors here? What are the possible errors in the lines of code that I just highlighted? What happens if I try to convert to an integer, right? Where the given value is the alphabets. What happens? So the first line is possible that it will throw value error. First line. Now the second line, possible error. Let us say both are entered valid digits, and the second line, the possible error is zero division error. Possible error is zero division error.
Zero
Anything
division.
divided by zero will result in a zero division error. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this
Yes, sir.
line, two lines are capable of having two different errors, capable of resulting in two different exceptions. This line, the above line, has a capability, or like, it can raise or throw or have an error which is value error. Now, even after this is successfully executed, which means both are integers, the second line has a capable of throwing zero division error. So which means these two lines can result in two different exceptions or two different errors. Yes. But what is our code doing? For both the errors, we have a single handling function. But for both the errors, we are having a single handling function. So here for this error, it makes sense. Enter valid numbers, digits only. But here for the second type of error, which is zero division error, does it make sense to show the same output here? Which means, right? Here for both the errors, we only have one except function. We only have one except function. So what are the possible here? What are the possible errors? As we know, there are two possible errors. There are two possible errors, right? So one is a value error. When I'm converting something to some string to integer, this raises value error. Another code that I have is basically something divided by 0 raises.
Zero division error.
But in the code, what did we do for both the exceptions? For both the exceptions, we have only one if except block. Here there is a possibility of value error and also zero division error. But for both the errors, we have only one except block. Now, can I handle each error separately? Can I handle each error separately? Right, so that I can show one error message for this, another error message for this. Can we do it? Yes, definitely we can. So we can handle individual exceptions. We can handle individual exceptions also. So we'll say try, right? Okay. And then you have the error prone code. And here what we are going to say is except. Okay, I'm going to say value error. Okay, there is a piece of code. And I can write one more except block, one try block, can have a multiple except blocks, except zero division error. except zero division error. Okay. Now what happens? Let us say here I had code something like this, eventually have int of ABC. Now this results in what error? Value error. If at all, if there is a value error, this piece of code will get executed. Okay. This
Okay,
block
sir.
gets executed. Let us say this was perfect. This was perfect. Int of 10 will result in 10. Perfect. This code, there was no error. Let us say it was like 10 by 0. This results in what error? Zero division error.
Division
Now,
error.
when there is a zero
Yes, sir.
division error, this will go into this except block. This will go into this except block. Now, if at all, if there is a value error, this block will get executed. If at all, if there is a zero division error, this block gets executed. This block gets executed. Okay, so you can handle individual exceptions also. You can handle individual exceptions also. Now let us do that. Let us try to handle multiple exceptions. So this is possible of throwing multiple exceptions. Now first I will handle value error. Okay, now I'll handle one more error except zero division error. Now here I'll just say print cannot divide by 0, right? Try again, something like this. Okay, now let us save it and I execute this again. Okay, now I'm going to say division. Okay, first number entered value, second number ABC. This will raise a value error. Yes. Now
Yes, sir.
it says entered valid number, digits only. Perfect. Right, we got that exception. Right, value error, entered valid numbers. And for us time being, value error block. Okay. Here I'm going to say zero division error block. Okay, let me stop and execute it. Okay, division 10 ABC. Okay, what does it say? Value error block, enter valid number, digits only. Now again, I'll give another operation, which is the division. Now this time I'll give 10 and 0. Now if you see, zero division block cannot divide by 0. Try again. Are we clear? Now I am
Clear, sir.
giving, right.
Clear,
Sir.
sir.
Right. So now I'm going to say add, sorry, not add, division, and I'm going to say 10 and 10. This is a perfectly valid case. This is a perfectly valid case, right? But here it did not go to either error, both the except blocks. It went, the except block will be executed only when there is an error. If there is no error, those blocks will not be executed. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right? I'm going to say quit. Quit means it is stopping the application and it is breaking the while loop. Perfect. Now that is so you can also handle multiple errors. Multiple errors. Right. This program was basically like, this two lines were basically trying to raise two different errors. First line, the possible error was the value error. Second line, the possible error was a zero division error. Right. So first we try to handle both of them with a single except block. Since that was not kind of helping us because both there was only one error message. Right now I want to give a different error message for different errors, which means I want to handle each of this error separately. Now if I have to handle individual errors, right, I can have multiple except blocks, One try can have a multiple except blocks. Are we clear? All right. All right, assignment. For all the errors, for all the errors we have seen so far, right? You remember you have told me like, so many exceptions here, right? So for write a code like, wherever you see, okay, here it raises a type error, here it raises a key error, here it raises a value error, index error, name error, whatever error, right? You have to handle all the errors. You have to handle all the errors. Try handling all the errors at one go. So here except meaning this can handle any error, can handle any error. Okay, but here, right, since we gave accept value error, this will handle only value error, this will handle only zero division error. If at all, if there is any other error, right, your program will stop. This is handling only two types of errors, value error, zero division error. Any other error, program stops. But here, whereas this handles any kind of error, because we are not specifying what type of error it is, right? So this is going to handle any kind of error, but this is a specific error. Now, what I want you guys to do is try handling all the exceptions. We have seen so many exceptions. Now try handling all of those exceptions individually, separately, and see how things work. Can we do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is your assignment. Finish it.